You ready? All right. Look, dog, I'm extra unique. My whole aura scream talent. Top man.
Another episode of the Underrated Podcast, Shannon Shorter.
Dayon Dunlap Sr.
We got a very special guest from the city of Houston, music executive, CEO of Black Diamond Entertainment. Got some of the best up-and-coming artists out of the city of Houston up under his regimen, Sina Athari.
Man, I appreciate y'all for having me.
Appreciate you jumping down, man.
Yes,
that goes
sir.
a long way with
Appreciate
me and my
you,
guy.
bro.
I appreciate y'all.
Man, and jumping off, in what ways are you underrated?
I feel like I'm underrated because I'm a workhorse. You know, I'm a workaholic. I'm very passionate about what I do. I feel like there's not too many record executives and record labels that are, you know, producing six figures on a monthly basis, independently with no record label, no backing, no distribution companies.
Amen.
And that's a blessing for me. I also feel like I'm underrated because I feel like I haven't received my flowers outside of the state of Texas yet in the industry the way that I should. But I'll never be satisfied until I get to the top at the end of the day. So that's why I feel like I'm underrated.
So let's piggyback off that. So is you receiving your flowers outside of the state of Texas like something that would be like reassuring for you?
Most definitely.
Okay, why is that so important for you?
Because I'm trying to expand outside. You know, I'm trying to be one of the biggest in the industry. I'm trying to be one of the biggest CEOs, biggest record labels in the industry. And I feel like that'll be my blessing at the end of the day.
Okay.
And you in a city that produced one of the biggest independent labels that's known to man, that's state to state and worldwide, like you mentioned. Was that any inspiration for you? Where'd you get the inspiration to actually begin start a record label?
My inspiration, my biggest inspiration as a person would have to be my father. And also my mother. You know, she passed away about 10 years ago. And I do this for them. I do this for my family. I want to make them proud. I want to make them happy, and I won't stop until I get there.
So what is Black Diamond Entertainment? Like, can you give us like a little backdrop of what that means to you?
Yeah.
What that name symbolizes? What was the reasoning behind it? Like, just give us a little information.
So how I came up with the name was Black Diamond signifies the highest level of competition, the highest level of talent. It signifies love for eternity and success for eternity. So that's just how I came up with the name.
Okay. And you started this in 2018?
Yes, sir.
So what was you doing prior to that?
I was doing music management from 2014 up until 2018.
Okay.
So why music? As far as culturally, from a cultured city, but you referenced your father being one of your biggest inspiration. What made you kind of get into a genre that is dominated by African Americans in a different culture? You
know, I was always a sports fan growing up. Ever since I was a kid, I feel like sports and music go hand in hand. You know, you're a basketball player, and I feel like at the end of the day, you were a fan before you actually got into hooping.
Right.
I was a fan of music before I got into music.
Okay.
As I got older, you know, I listened to a lot of upcoming artists. You know, I was jamming Future when he was Meathead with the Dungeon Family. You know, I was jamming Dirk when he had the long black dreads in 2009. And I felt like I always had a niche and a good ear for upcoming talent. And as I got older, I realized as I seen those artists excel, I realized, you know, I do have a good ear for this, and I feel like there's potential for me to do something in the music industry.
So how do you figure out how you want to go about signing artists? Like, do you just, what is the number one thing that stands out to you that makes you say, okay, this is somebody I want to sign? Because you got a lot of great artists under your regimen right now, and I'm pretty sure you want it to grow. Yeah. So how do you go about doing that?
That kind of goes back to my last question. It relates to the last question that you asked me and the last answer I referred to. So, you know, I'm a fan of this before anything, and I listen to these artists. That a lot of them come up on my Explore page on Instagram, and I'm a fan of music before anything, and I feel like, you know. Like I said, I feel like I got a good ear for music. So whenever I see these artists on Instagram, I'll reach out to them and build a relationship with them and, you know, tell them that to keep working and, you know, that their success will come. And I guess how I approach the situation and how I find talent is, you know, like I said, I feel like I have a good knack and a good ear for music, and I kind of just persuade and go with my gut feeling.
What's some of those things you might look into? Because you can have nowadays, you can have an artist who may have a big following, and really all they need is one song to gather their following. So is it a sound? Is it kind of a persona? Is it a combination of things? What's some of those characteristics as an artist may hear this, want to give it to a record, like, okay, maybe I could take a piece of this to get myself to that point? What's some of those things that you may see or on social media or whatever the case may be as you looking for artists?
Artist definitely has to be marketable. They got to have an image. They have to make good music, obviously. You know, the first artist that I ever worked with in 2014, I found him on Instagram. The second artist that I ever worked with, D-Baby, I found him on Instagram as well. It's a crazy story how we actually linked up. We can get into that later on in the podcast. But you know, just believing in them and believing in my passion and knowing what I can bring to the table if we come together. But you know, I like to work with like-minded individuals, and all the artists that I've ever worked with have had like-minded individuals like myself. So. You know, that's just kind of how it goes.
So under your label, you've had a lot of really good artists. Yep. Really good artists from like you mentioned, D-Baby, who's one of the hottest artists out right now, and not even just in the city of Houston, not in the state, but globally and around the world at this moment in time. And then you had YB Puerto Rico, you had D Flowers, you got Lil CJ, you got Young Al, you see what I'm saying? So like, how was the moment in meeting D-Baby and you can even just go through meeting each and every one of them? What was that moment like for you and just allowing them to build that trust in you to say, okay, you somebody I want behind me?
Yeah. I'll start with D-Baby first. That's actually a crazy story. So he popped up on my Explore page about 2016.
Was his name always D-Baby?
It was Coke Boy D at first.
Okay.
Yeah, he changed it to D-Baby around the time that we started working.
Okay.
So he came up across my Explore page, and I reached out to him I like to establish a relationship before I start working with these artists, just so, you know, I can get to know them as a person and make sure we're on the same page and have the same goals, shit like that. So, you know, I DM'd him in about 2016. He had about 4 records out and maybe about 2,000 followers on Instagram. And I DM'd him and I told him that I feel like he's got a lot of potential and to keep up the hard work and that he'll be a star in the near future. About 2 years later, ironically, you know, I was getting my beard trimmed at a barbershop. My barber, King Daly, shout out King Daly, he moved to another barbershop, which was a predominantly Hispanic barbershop. And I was sitting, the first cut I ever got over there, I was sitting in the chair and they're playing D-Baby's music on the TV. And I'm like, you know, I hadn't really heard much of his new music, but when I heard these records on YouTube that they were playing on the TV, I was like, damn, is this the same dude that I was talking to a couple years ago? And I asked my barber, and he was like, yeah, I remember you telling me about him. He was like, his family owns this barbershop. I was like, no shit. And his cousin's literally in the next chair cutting hair right next to me. Okay. And my barber was like, that's his cousin right there. And, you know, I started chopping it up with his cousin, and his cousin was like, yeah, that's my cousin. I was like, damn, I'm trying to work with him. Can you set up a meeting for me? He was like, yeah, I got you. About 2 days later, D-Baby comes to the barbershop. We have about an hour conversation outside of the barbershop. The rest was history. Yep. So it was just ironically, you know, I was at the right place at the right time, and shit worked out perfectly.
Did you see this trajectory for D-Baby then? Like to where he is now?
Most definitely. Because I feel like a lot of things in the music industry were unacceptable 10, 15 years ago. You know, there weren't too many Hispanic artists in the industry. And, you know, whenever I met him, he's a bigger dude. 6'3", his voice matches his perception. And I immediately knew as soon as I met him in person, he was going to be a star. his music, that the 4 songs that he had prior to us working I felt like they were all national platform songs as is. So, you know, we had that meeting and I told him, you know, I see a lot of potential in you and I think we can make some noise within the next 2 years or so. I was blessed to have worked with him for a 6-year time span. And, you know, it took about 2 years for us to produce Income together. I invested a lot of money into the situation, but about after 2 years, his catalog, he dropped a couple records that were going up and he started to produce some income. And that's when I realized, okay, this shit is real.
So can you talk about how like important it is to like stay down during them low days? Like them days when like you ain't seeing no income coming in. You putting in your own money. It's a lot of sleepless nights. It's a lot of money you putting into the studio and you're not seeing the fruits of that. Can you talk about them days and, just how important they are?
I feel like just like any other investment, everything takes time. It's a process. You have to spend money to make money in any industry.
Can you just discuss how like them dark days that y'all went through together? You said it took you 2 years before you seen money with them and not giving up in them situations and just staying down. What is the underlying factor that says, okay, we gonna fight through this. We gonna keep pushing.
I mean, it was both of our passion. You know, this is what I wanted in life. This is what he wanted in life. We had the same mentality. We had the same focus. And I got to give him credit. He's one of the hardest. No, he's the hardest artist that I've ever worked with. Hardest working artist that I've ever worked with. He's a workhorse, just like me. You know, and I feel like that's why we clicked and we were able to have the success that we had.
What's some of those challenges marketing as an independent label? Because I know artists who maybe talk about being independent and the challenge of them financing themselves and what it takes to actually be an independent artist. So on an independent label, what are some of those challenges for you as you're investing into artists to try to grow not only regionally but nationally?
A lot of trial and error. You gotta, you know, the reason why it took us so long to produce Income is because there's a lot of different avenues to invest in the music scene.
Like what?
You know, YouTube videos, YouTube ads, music videos, studio time, press runs, a bunch of different things. And all that consists of money, but it also consists of the artist having an actual fan base at the end of the day, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So like we said, you had a lot of artists under your label, you know, and obviously some didn't continue with you. Can you discuss like the talent that D Flowers had and just obviously he has a crazy voice, you know what I mean, that matches persona and etc. You have a crazy fan base. Obviously y'all went y'all separate ways. You don't got to dive deep into it, but just give us a little 2 cents on. He's very talented.
Probably the most talented artist I've ever worked with. The first thing that attracted to me was obviously his voice. People would always think that, you know, it's auto-tune and it's not his real voice. When you know, whenever I got on the phone with him for the first time, I was like, damn, this is his real voice. And that was very unique to me, you know, and his cadence, his melodies, all of that is on point. D Flowers is one of the most talented artists, if not the most talented artist that I've ever been around. And he's a very intelligent individual, very respectful individual, got a very good head on his shoulders. And, you know, I think he will be one of the biggest artists in the industry in due time.
This podcast, we like to talk about people who overcome adverse situations and being independent. What are some of those adverse situations you had to come independently to be able to make your name regionally, like you said, but eventually take it state to state and be national?
Yeah. You know, like I said, it'll get discouraging at times. There's ups and downs in the industry, just like there is in every business. Personally, the adversity that I went through in the midst of me starting the label was, I don't really talk about this too much, but I caught a federal case about 8 years ago. I did 7 months in the federal penitentiary, and I had lost my mother about 6 months prior to that. So it was a very difficult time for me. I didn't know what I wanted to do in life, but music was my number one passion. And I felt like, you know, every night that I was in the pen, I would literally talk about it every single night. This is my plan. This is what I'm going to do when I get out. And as soon as I got out, I stood on that. I did everything that I said I was going to do. my biggest vision was to bring the city of Houston together. And not too much longer after, the state of Texas started catching on to it. Dallas, as you know, Dallas has their wave, the new Dallas wave. And, that was my next goal, was to bring the state of Texas together. I actually came up with a slogan, Texas with a U.S., meaning, unity.
Yeah.
Texas as one. We could do this together. We can go further together as opposed to further individually. And that was one of my biggest resumes. It's I'm blessed to be in the position that I'm in. I worked very hard to get here, and I'm lucky that I had a lot of like-minded individual artists that I worked with to get on the same page with me, because none of this would have been possible without those artists that I worked with.
How much of your faith would you attribute to getting through that time that you spent in the pen and manifestation and having faith? Because I'm aware with the change that you wear, how much of that played into the part who you are and what you were able to become getting past that situation?
Everything. I mean, I don't take that situation for granted. I wouldn't change it for anything. I'm fortunate that I went through that situation because it made me grow as an individual.
Amen.
I grew from that situation, and whenever I got out, I just had my mind set, like I was focused, this is what I wanted to do, and I wasn't going to stop until I succeeded.
So we like to discuss something called exposure leads to expansion, right? On this platform and etc. So like, what moment did you see something and say like, I can do that. I can be a part of this. I know I can get to that level just from being in the midst of some type of exposure.
I would say whenever I added YB Puerto Rico and D Flowers to the roster, because that was also a big part of my vision whenever I started the label. I wanted multiple artists who had regional success under the umbrella, because I feel like one artist's success is a platform for the next artist under the label to succeed. And it worked out the exact way I expected it to work out. That gave us a lot of exposure. I feel like we got the torch in the city of Houston in terms of the record labels that are based in the city of Houston. And, that really inspired me to take this to another level.
How do you define success?
I define success, hard work, never giving up, but also the residuals. I got to say money. I can't deny that. I got to say financial income. Whenever I started producing, that's when I realized that I have the capability to take this to the next level and take this to a national platform.
Are there any like producers, executives that like influenced you, that you looked at and was like got seen a blueprint that could shape your trajectory?
I got to shout out DJ XO.
Okay.
DJ Chose,
yep.
June James, GMB Productions, GMB. They were my mentors coming into the industry. They encouraged me a lot to continue to do what I'm doing. Like I said, this industry gets discouraging a lot. They enforced and emphasized for me not to give up, and just having, like I said, good people around me. Yeah.
So fast forward a little bit, with Black Diamond Entertainment, is there anybody that's on your radar that you didn't came across that you feeling like you can be somebody that can be a part of the label? You ain't even got to say their name, but
I'll say their name.
Okay.
Lil Jeremy, OTB Fastlane. I'm in the process of locking something in with OTB Fastlane, and me and Lil Jeremy have been negotiating for the past couple months, and we're pretty close to coming to finalizing some type of deal.
Is there a number you want to get to as far as like artists on your label, or is it just like you, whatever come across you willing to sign? It ain't.
There's another white boy from Tampa Bay, Florida. He's gonna be the hardest white boy that y'all have ever heard in y'all's life. His name is Jonah Rain.
Okay.
He's about 24, 25 years old. He's a new wave rapper. He looks like a preppy white boy, and his music is undeniably ridiculous. Yeah.
You think the music scene has changed as far as the diversity of artists and being accepting of diverse
Most
artists?
definitely. That's what I was saying earlier. I feel like a lot of stuff 10, 15 years ago wasn't acceptable. You know, I don't think too many Hispanic rappers could have succeeded in the music industry because it is a predominantly urban industry. But nowadays, you know, it's evolutionary. There's white rappers that are, you know, taking off. There's Hispanic rappers that are taking off. You know, it's just a new generation.
So like I believe you made a Be Someone mixtape. A record and etc. Was that all for the unity of the state? Like you said, you wanted to push it further and let everybody know we can go further together. If we separate it, so to speak.
Yeah, I feel like there's so much undeniable talent in the state of Texas. I actually started out doing 2 Houston compilations, and then whenever those compilations started to have some notoriety. Around that time, there was a lot of artists from Dallas, such as Big X the Plug, Zillionaire Doe, Montana 700, Four Bats. You know, there was a lot of artists that started to have some success as well. So then I branched off and started doing Texas compilations. And that compilation had the most success for me. Yeah.
Because some say that they don't feel like the city support their own until the nation maybe catch on to it. And so
not necessarily. You got to have your city on lock before the nation even gets to notice you, gets notoriety from you. I feel like that's the biggest thing for any. You know, D-Baby had his success by getting himself established in the state of Texas, and then he became a national platform artist. And that's the same with, you know, Big X the Plug. He had his city on lock before becoming one of the biggest artists in the world now in the U.S. I think I just read an article last week. I can't remember what platform it was, but they ranked him the number 8 artist in hip-hop artist in the U.S. And it was a prominent platform.
Who are you referring to? Ranked number
Big X the Plug.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nah, he nice though.
Yeah. I mean, he was up there with Travis Scott. Travis Scott was in that top 10. Lil Baby was in that top 10. Future was in that top 10. So that says a lot just from where the potential of the talent in the state of Texas is headed. Yeah.
So, like, is it more important for you to uplift the artists in Texas or like around the U.S.? It don't whoever you come across.
I mean, that's just what I grew up on. You know, I grew up on that Slim Thug, Paul Wall. The Rap-A-Lot era, Lil Kiki, Chameleon era, you know. So growing up, I was always a fan of that, and I was infatuated by that, you know. And then that was my main goal coming into the industry, is that I wanted to bring the city of Houston together because I felt like there were so many artists that had potential to be on a national platform that just don't have the exposure that they need. But they're all getting there now.
Okay. So, like, fast forward a little bit. Is there anybody, we always ask this question on our pod, is there anybody you would like to see on the pod that you think would be beneficial to this platform?
Mexican OT, D-Baby. Lil Jeremy, OTB Fast Lane.
Yeah, uplift your people, bro.
I got you, bro. I'll put a word in.
Uplift your people,
I
bro.
got you.
Uplift. Yeah. So we always like to end with just a simple question. What would you tell your younger self if you had to reflect hindsight 2020? Now that you're in a position that you're in now, what would you tell your younger self?
Honestly, I wouldn't change anything. Everything happens for a reason. You know, everything happens on God's timing, and you know it's a part of life. You live and you learn from your mistakes, and you know that's just it. It is what it is. That's how I feel.
Can you you don't gotta talk about this. I know it may be personal for you, but you're engaged, I believe.
I'm in the process of proposing.
Okay, in the process. Did I?
No, you
okay.
Good.
You're in the process of proposing. Can you describe how much your soon-to-be fiance has helped you in your journey?
She changed my life.
I do see you uplift her a lot on your page and etc. Like, how does she help you?
She changed my life. She's the most beautiful soul I've ever met. She encourages me. You know, she keeps me on my toes. She keeps me on my shit. She's a fitness influencer, so she encourages me to, work out on a daily basis. whenever I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, she'll call me out on my shit. And, you know, those are the type of people you need. That's the type of girl you need in your life, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, you know, she's the most important person to me in my life, most definitely.
Advice for independent artists, independent record execs or owners, what would you give them if they're thinking about starting or maybe got one foot in but having full-fledged put their all into it for them to maybe even be like yourself, join you, or any advice that you would give someone in that industry?
Never give up. Like I said, this industry gets very discouraging. You know, you get on Instagram and you see all these other artists and these other record executives that might be doing a little bit better than you, but you can't take that into accountability. You got to just keep on going and keep pushing and work your ass off, you know, and it'll all come to you.
Sina, Shannon Shorter, I appreciate you jumping down on the pod,
appreciate
bro.
y'all.
I've been locked in with you for a little bit, for a few years. So just you even blessing us with your presence, that go a long way with us, brother. I appreciate you, man.
I appreciate y'all for having me.
Underrated podcast, Shannon Shorter.
Dayon down loud. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. We got more to come.
Amen.